The night air in Central California during the mid-1970s was often quiet, spread thin across suburbs that had grown fast and uneven. New housing tracts stood beside fields and canals. Streets were wide, dark, and familiar to the people who lived there. Police departments were small and mostly local. Crime was present, but it was usually visible, brief, and contained. Over the next 4 decades, a single offender would move through this landscape repeatedly, unnoticed, methodical, and persistent. His crimes would stretch across counties and years, leaving behind fragments of evidence that would not fully connect until long after the violence had ended. In October 1973, a series of burglaries began in the town of Visalia, located in County. Homes were entered while residents were away or asleep. Items were moved, drawers opened, and small personal objects were taken. The intruders showed familiarity with the neighborhoods and an ability to move quietly. Over time, the burglaries increased in frequency and boldness. The offender began entering occupied homes. He left signs of his presence. Police called him the Visalia. The crimes created unease, but at first they did not attract wide attention outside the area. In April 1974, a masked intruder entered the home of a college professor in Visalia. The homeowner confronted him. The intruder fired a shot and escaped. No one was killed. Later that year, in December, a man matching the ransacker's description was confronted by a police officer near a burglary scene. The suspect fled. The officer fired his weapon. The suspect was wounded but escaped into the darkness. No arrest followed. The Visalia ransacker disappeared soon after. In June 1976, a new series of crimes began in Rancho Cordova, a suburb east of Sacramento. A man broke into a home at night. He woke the occupants, tied them with shoelaces, and threatened them. He raped the woman. He ransacked the home and left quietly. Similar attacks followed in nearby neighborhoods. The offender struck at night. He entered through sliding glass doors or windows. He used ligatures he found inside the house. He whispered threats. He listened to police radios. He escaped on foot or by bicycle. Law enforcement named him the East Area Rapist. By the end of 1976, his attacks had spread across Sacramento County. Victims described a white male, young, athletic, with a soft but controlled voice. He wore a mask. He demonstrated knowledge of police procedures. He often spent long periods inside the homes before and after the assaults. He sometimes returned to the same neighborhoods weeks later. Patrols increased. Community meetings were held. The attacks continued down in 1977. The pattern expanded. The offender struck in San Joaquin County, then Contra Costa County. Jurisdictional boundaries, complicated coordination. Each department collected evidence, but systems were separate. DNA testing did not exist. Composite sketches varied. The offender adapted to increased patrols by changing entry methods and escape routes. He showed patience and planning. By late 1977, more than 30 sexual assaults had been attributed to the East Area Rapists. In early 1978, the attacks shifted. Again, the offender began targeting couples. He bound both victims. He stacked dishes on the man's back and threatened to kill them if he heard noise. The assaults became more violent. In February 1978, a couple was attacked in Sacramento. The man was beaten unconscious. The woman was raped repeatedly. The offender escaped. This pattern repeated in multiple cases. In July 1979, the crimes escalated to murder. In Goleta, near Santa Barbara, a young couple was attacked in their home. Both were bound. The woman was raped. Both victims were then killed. The method was different but shared key elements with earlier attacks. Law enforcement did not initially link the homicide to the East Area Rapists. The crimes occurred far from Sacramento. The offender was now known as the original Night Stalker in Southern California. Between 1979 and 1981, at least 10 murders occurred in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties. The victims were couples or single women. They were attacked in their homes at night. Ligatures were used. The offender showed familiarity with the layouts and surrounding areas. He left little physical evidence. The crimes caused fear, but connections between regions remained unclear. In August 1981, a couple in Dana Point was murdered. This would be the last known homicide attributed to the offender. After that, the attacks stopped. No arrest was made. The case went cold. Files remained open in multiple jurisdictions. Evidence was boxed and stored. Victims lived with the consequences. Investigators retired. The offender remained unidentified. In the 1990s, advances in DNA analysis allowed evidence from several cases to be tested. Semen samples from rape scenes were preserved. In 2001, DNA profiles from Northern and Southern California cases were compared. They matched. The East Area Rapists and the original Night Stalker were the same person. The combined offender became known as the Erons, later called the Golden State Killer by investigators and media. Despite the DNA link, the identity of the suspect remained unknown. The profile was entered into criminal databases. No match appeared. The offender had never been arrested for a qualifying offense. Investigators revisited old leads. Some focused on former law enforcement officers due to the offender's apparent knowledge of police tactics. Hundreds of suspects were evaluated. None matched to DNA. Years passed. The case gained renewed public attention through books, articles, and online forums. Survivors shared their stories. Amateur investigators studied maps and timelines. Law enforcement quietly continued work, constrained by resources and aging evidence. In 2016 and 2017, investigators in California explored a new approach. They used forensic genetic genealogy. DNA from the crime scenes was uploaded to a public genealogy database that allowed law enforcement access. The DNA did not identify the offender directly. Instead, it revealed distant relatives. Family trees were built using public records. Names were narrowed by age, sex, and location. By early 2018, one name emerged repeatedly. Joseph James DeAngelo, born in 1945, had lived in several of the areas where the crimes occurred. He had been a police officer in Exeter and Auburn during the 1970s. He was fired from his job in 1979 for shoplifting. He later worked as a mechanic. He had no felony record. His DNA was not in criminal databases. Investigators conducted surveillance. They collected discarded items from DeAngelo's trash. DNA from those items matched the crime scene profile. On April 24, 2018, DeAngelo was arrested outside his home in Citrus Heights. He was 72 years old. The arrest confirmed decades of suspicion but also raised new questions. DeAngelo was charged with multiple counts of murder and sexual assault due to statutes of limitation. Some rape charges could not be filed. The murder charges remained. Victims and families were notified. The news spread quickly. In 2020, DeAngelo entered a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to 13 counts of first-degree murder and admitted to dozens of other crimes. The admissions were read into the record. The court proceedings were lengthy and formal. Survivors delivered impact statements. DeAngelo remained largely silent. In August 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case officially closed. Evidence was archived. Investigative teams disbanded. The outcome was final, but the impact continued. Audience discussion. At this point in the story, it is worth pausing outside the narrative to reflect on how the case unfolded across jurisdictions and decades. Consider how investigative limits, technology, and information sharing shaped the outcome, and how later tools changed what was possible. After the sentencing, law enforcement agencies reviewed their records and procedures. The case became a reference point for forensic genealogy. Policies were updated, cold case units expanded in some regions, privacy concerns were debated publicly. The balance between investigative power and personal data became a national topic. For the victims, the resolution did not erase the past. Many described relief mixed with renewed trauma. Some had waited more than 40 years for a name. Counseling services were offered. Support networks formed. The legal acknowledgement of the crimes provided a measure of closure, but not restoration. The Golden State Killer case also reshaped public understanding of serial crime. It demonstrated how a single offender could exploit fragmented systems, and how persistence and technology could eventually overcome those gaps. It underscored the importance of evidence preservation. Samples collected decades earlier became decisive. In the final years of his life, DeAngelo was held in state prison. No further interviews were conducted. No comprehensive explanation of his actions was provided. The official record remains limited to documented events and admissions. As time passes, the case continues to influence training, policy, and public memory. It stands as one of the longest and most complex criminal investigations in American history, defined not by spectacle, but by duration, scale, and eventual resolution. If you want to follow how similar investigations unfold and how cold cases are revisited, this is a good moment to explore other documented stories on the channel and stay connected as new research and cases are examined. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you found it informative, consider liking the video and subscribing to Voices of Crime. Leave a comment to share your thoughts or reflections. And continue with another case on the channel to explore more real stories and their lasting impact.